So, Sophie, it's been such a roller coaster for the Fife property market over the last 6 years. We've had lockdown, we've had the trust budget, and we've also had those rising interest rates. Let's cue the VT. So, yeah, it has been a roller coaster the last 6 years. Thanks for joining me this afternoon, Sophie. We are going to talk about the Fife property market and how navigating the roller coaster last 6 years looks like. So, the Fife property market has really experienced that roller coaster ride since 2019. And that really reflects the unprecedented challenges and opportunities that have shaped the landscape of home buying and selling in the Fife area. So we've got a really good graph to accompany what we're talking about today, and it kind of vividly illustrates these dramatic fluctuations. As I said, obviously, lockdown, the surge afterwards, the trust budget, interest rates, and everything. And it compares Fife's monthly house sales, and as they're expressed as a percentage over that 6 year period from 2019 to this year, which is 2024. Now, I'm going to just share. I'm going to share that graph just to show you what we're talking about. And once we've had a chat, I'll bring it back up and we could look at it in more detail. But yeah, there's the graph there for everybody at home. Hope you can see that. And as I said, that compares the Fife monthly house sales expressed as a percentage in the blue over that 6 year period. And also the graph in the orange, it has the Bank of England's base rate between 2019 and 2024 as well. And today, by examining that 6 year time frame, we could try and better understand the resilience of the local market here in Fife and the influences of economic factors, particularly like the interest rates and property transactions and things as well. So that's what we're going to cover today. So Sophie, tell us a wee bit, maybe let's kick off talking about the pandemic's impact and that possibly that post-lockdown surge as well.
I have to say, when you say 6 years, that's crazy when you think of it like that. 6 years. But of course, the first significant event highlighted in that graph, obviously the snippet which we will come back to, is the pandemic and the lockdown in early 2020. Property market in Fife, like most of the country and like most things in that time, did a complete ground to the halt, with house sales in April of 2020 alone. This is just April 2020 alone, plummeting by 90.7% below the 2019 to 2014 medium-term 6 year monthly average. That was 90.7, which is drastic. The lockdown effectively froze the Fife property market, as restrictions, of course, made it difficult for people to view properties, secure mortgages, move homes, do all of the above, basically. Ground to a halt.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, and that, well, obviously you see that period, the April 2020 is right as we entered the first lockdown, and a lot of things did really ground to a halt and froze ultimately. I know it was difficult for a lot of agents, and then obviously solicitors were closed, mortgage advisors, so everything was done. I know that a lot of forward-thinking agents and people used that time as an opportunity. Obviously included, but some did suffer in that time, and it was quite a challenging time for everybody. But that's quite a significant start, plummeting. Did you see 90.7% below the medium of that 6 year in that month of April?
However, obviously the Fife property market experienced we did a rebound, and we came back once the lockdown measures were eased. The graph, which again we'll go back to in more detail, indicates a post-lockdown boom, with sales soaring in some months to 54% above the 6 year monthly average by mid to late 2020, which is obviously a big difference to the 90.7. This surge can be attributed to pent-up demand. Obviously, everybody was sitting tight waiting, and then it was lifted. So then the demand, government incentives that were put in place, like the land and buildings transaction tax holiday, and a renewed appreciation for home ownership as people, after being cooped up, sought more space and comfort during those uncertain times. This period of time saw an extraordinary activity, with many homes selling quickly and often way above that asking price. So it was a bounce back for sure.
Yeah, that post-lockdown surge. I mean, it was something that obviously I've been in the property market for quite a long time now. When I think of it, and I've never experienced anything that quite like that surge. I mean, I think when we last had the property boom was just before I started in 2010. So obviously we had the market obviously went exponentially high in like 2008 and things, 7 and 8. But so I mean, to go through that at the other side of lockdown was it was a crazy time for property. And the graph does really depict that quite well. I'll bring it back on screen just to show people. I don't know if you guys, it'll be easier if I get my cursor here. So you see that initially that lockdown, where it plummets down there at the lockdown, and then right on the other side you've got the post-lockdown boom, where it jumps right up in that period that you just referenced there. So it was very much a boom time for the property market, not just in Fife, across the whole of the UK. That was experienced. And then, of course, we come out of obviously the post-lockdown period and things, and as we progressed into different governments and things, the Liz Truss budget, and then of course, obviously, we had rising interest rates as well, which has had a big impact. Now, the Fife property market did remain quite buoyant from that time through 2021, although sales began to, we'll call it, normalise in the latter months of that year, and fluctuating, but still frequently staying above the long-term average. Now, the shift in dynamics started in the mid to late 2002, coinciding with the economic upheaval triggered by the Truss budget. So the Truss budget, which led to the market instability and then rising mortgage rates as well, immediately impacted buyers' confidence. So as a result, Fife house sales dipped below the long-term average as potential buyers paused to reassess their finances and their position as well. I think it made people quite uneasy, and obviously mortgage rates and things rising as they did just really put people in a different mindset towards buying and how they did in the previous years. So I think also I think simultaneously the Bank of England responded to inflationary pressures by increasing that base rate, and that's clearly showed in the graph as well, and it's depicted. You could see the relationship between the average house sales and the Bank of England base rates. I have to keep bringing it back, but it's just to really show you. You could see there. The blue is, of course, the Fife monthly house sales as a percentage of the 6-year monthly Fife average. Okay, I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but that's what it is. And then this orange line here is the Bank of England base rates, and you can see the relationship between the two. Apart from these poignant moments like lockdown, post-lockdown, and then you've got the Truss budget here, and then the high interest rates where it dips and then dips even further. So you could quite see that clearly. That graph maybe looks a wee bit technical, but it's actually a really good illustration of how the market was reacting in those times. So yeah, I mean, the sharp rise in interest rates through 2022 to 2023, and that was peaking at around 5.2% in 2023, the interest rates. So that further dampened the market activity. So higher mortgage rates reduced affordability, particularly for first-time buyers. I mean, did you see that during that period into 2023? First-time buyers obviously then struggled to to get onto the market because of the high interest rates, Sophie?
Oh, absolutely. And absolutely, they struggled, especially because that's, to them as well, that's all they knew. They were coming in at that, and it meant that what they could get. So they thought, actually, do you know what? I'm just going to sit tight. I'm going to stay living with my parents. I'm going to stay in my rented.
Well, I had a lot of people staying in rented accommodation because it was easier, it was more affordable, there was less entry and exit costs and things.
Less uncertainty, absolutely, absolutely less uncertainty. So just they stayed put to wait to see what would happen. Absolutely.
And also, I think when you've got higher interest rates like that, you're not just then concentrating. You've got to have the amount to put down, obviously, on your property initially, but then the ongoing costs are a lot more. You know, higher mortgage payments, coupled with utility bills and council tax, everything that's obviously all inflated. So it did have an effect on the first-time buyers.
I think that as well, and then the uncertainty. Okay, if it's going to be 5.25%, you know, base rate just now, am I going to do a 2-year fixed term if I do take the plunge and go, or am I going to do 5-year fixed term? Because then what does that look like at that point? Because look at what's happened in this space of time. So actually, am I going to do that to myself and put myself in that position, or do I just sit here and rented?
And that's the uncertainty. It's like, because obviously if they fix that for 2 years, do you know, or do they fix it for 5 years? But then maybe 3 years down the line, there's going to be a better deal to be had, and then you have to weigh up, right? Okay, well, what's my exit cost from my current mortgage product if I've locked myself in for 5 years, and does it make sense to do that at the time? So there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of difficulty for people to navigate through that situation. Also, not just first-time buyers, but also made it quite challenging for existing Fife homeowners to move up the ladder, because there's obviously no one coming in to buy their property as first-time buyers to allow them to move on. So then that obviously resulted in the market cooling quite significantly, and it's seen a negative sales percentage during that period, and we could see that as well. So, but then I think obviously, what about the resilience and maybe the recovery in this year, 2024, for the property market?
So, despite everything we're just talking about just now, obviously the headwinds of the higher interest rates, the Fife property market in 2024 at the minute shows signs of resilience. We're being resilient just now. The graph pop up, Richard. The graph illustrates that even with these challenges, monthly sales have stabilized and are still above the long-term average, which is, of course, a testament to the underlying strength of the local market. It's important to note, though, that this average includes the exceptionally high sales volume of 2020 and 2021. And of course, as we saw that boom where everybody was sitting tight and then they realized they needed space. So obviously, that is those exceptionally high volumes in the later 2020 and the 2021, making the current performance even more impressive. And then
let me just I'm going to pull the graph up again, because
let's get in depth.
Yeah, just so we could really go in it, because now we've obviously discussed all these different parts. Now, hopefully you could see my cursor, because it'll be easier to take it through. So yeah, let's go back to 2019, and obviously lockdown hit us in March 2020, and you could see this dip here in the blue on the left-hand side. Now that comes down quite significantly.
Yep.
Obviously we were aware of that, and then on the other side of that, where we come out, obviously the latter part of 2020 into 2021, we have the post-lockdown boom. It also runs at this portion up here at the top, and as you said there, it's where we are just now is still lower than that, and obviously the average on this graph takes in this exceptionally high period of sales during the post-lockdown boom. And then obviously as we come further along and head into the latter part of 2022, we've got the fallout from the trust budget here, which jumps down, and then 2023 with the high interest rates creeping in, and as we hit the latter part of 2023, you can see how much that falls out there right down. But as I said before, you could also see that relationship with this orange line here, of the average house sales and also the Bank of England base rates. And as that rises and comes along, we also come down as well. But then where we are here now, which is a reasonably good situation, obviously, we've got up to July 2024. But I mean, that's a good place to be. We're not far off that as we stand at the moment, in the current market. So, but I think obviously if anybody wants to see this graph, it's I think it's attached to the content that's on our post today. But obviously, happy for people to have a look at that. If you can't, don't have enough time to clearly look at it today, or you could pause the video and have a look. But it's a really good illustration of the market over this 6-year period, and I think really shows quite clearly how the flow of house sales is in relation to these factors, which obviously have an effect on it, like lockdown and the budget, and also the ongoing change in the Bank of England base rates as well. So let's take us through a wee bit more in depth of the individual annual data for the Fife area. So looking at the data for obviously all the agents that collectively in the Fife area, and that's postcodes KY1 to KY12, KY14 and 16, which is obviously St Andrews and things as well. Go take us through some of the years individually, just to give us a better idea of the breakdown.
So we'll start with 2019. So an average of 270 properties sold, subject to conclusive missives, per month in Fife. Now that's 2.5% higher than the long-term 6-year monthly Fife average of 264 properties. And as always with these videos, we say that we use the word average loosely, but it's an average. Then moving on a year, we go to 2020. As Richard said, March 20 lockdown hit. So an average of 250 properties sold per month in Fife, which is 5.3% lower than the long-term 6-year monthly Fife average of 264. So you can see that decrease as obviously lockdown hit. Then moving on a year, 2021, an average of 287, which is more than obviously the 2019 stats. And that puts it at 9% higher than the long-term 6-year monthly Fife of the 264 property sales. So remember that 264, because that's the key number in this as we go throughout the years.
That's
so 2022 is an average of 265 properties sold per month in Fife. So that is 0.7% higher than the long-term 6-year monthly average of the 264. And then again, it lowers to an average of 227 properties sold, and that's for 2023 per month in Fife, which is 13.7% lower than the long-term 6-year monthly Fife average of 264. But as we've been detailing throughout, that's obviously a reflection of those base rates, and that's why it's so drastic. That's the drastic.
That's a big dip. And then, so bring us to this year then. What's the...
So fast forward to this year, 6 years later from 2019, which still sounds crazy to me. An average, this is year to date, obviously at the minute, but this is an average of 291 properties sold per month in Fife, which is 10.3% higher than the 264. So that 291 out of all of the years is the highest in the last 6 years since 2019. And that is your 10.3% higher.
Yeah, so I was going to say, so you said there, obviously, the 264 property sales, that is the average over this 6 year. And we started out, obviously, 2019 at 270. It dipped down to about 227, 2023, which has been obviously, that was at its lowest when we had the increase in rates and things as well. And then this year we've jumped right up, 291 properties. We've got a 10.3% increase in comparison to the average 264 property sales. So we're in quite a good position for this year.
Absolutely, and that's just obviously we're only in September as well. We've got still a few more months to go.
So I think the sustained level of activity suggests that demand for homes in Fife does remain quite robust, and that's driven by factors such as maybe the area's appeal, the relative affordability compared to maybe renting or other areas, and perhaps the normalisation of working from home and that culture that allows more flexibility and where people choose to live. That's been such a big thing since lockdown, how people changed their approach and how they work and live and where they work and live is quite significant. And I'm sure you see that when you are dealing with people that are buying property coming in from other areas, maybe from Edinburgh and further afield. Do you see that quite a lot?
Well, Edinburgh, Glasgow, further afield. Now, is it no more important? It is where is a home office study, because everybody's working from home. And again, this is where Leaving's benefiting, because obviously you've got the train station that's now open. So actually, if I only need to be in the big city one day every 2 weeks, I'm going to come, move out of the big cities, get more for my money, get a better lifestyle, a better way of life where I can close my laptop 5 o'clock if you're lucky enough to finish at 5 o'clock, close the laptop, walk down to the beach, better quality of life. But then actually I can just nip along to the train station on that one Thursday every 2 weeks or every month that I need to nip in. So why would you not come out of the big cities or from down south and come where you've got the lifestyle, but also affordability to get more footprint of a property? Oh, absolutely. It's had a massive impact, the working from home space.
For me, the main thing that I pick up when you say it is lifestyle, and it absolutely is. Buying a home, it's all about the lifestyle. Whether you're a family, whether you're a professional couple, whether you're somebody on their own, do you know? It's like it's your lifestyle and what's surrounding you. Do you know, whether you want somewhere where you could enjoy walking the dog, or meet up with friends, or take the kids to the beach, or do you know, whatever. It's that kind of lifestyle. And Fife's great because it's got all these different areas where you could enjoy certain different things, or even you're just a short commute or car journey away from, whether it's the seaside or whether it's into the city, or do you know, whether it's, do you know, it's all these different things, the countryside or whatever, which I think's great. It's like a kind of micro version of the entire country. But and also you did say about affordability there as well, and I think although we do have higher priced areas, i.e. KY16, St Andrews, but there is still, and even in those areas, it's still a lot more affordable than other parts of the UK and indeed Scotland. When people come from Glasgow and Edinburgh and things, which is, I mean, we're an hour, 2 hours away, whether it's Edinburgh or Glasgow, the price point for what you can afford pick up and have as your home here in Fife, compared to, you could probably pick up an apartment or something in Edinburgh, is just crazy.
You can't compare. You just can't compare them. No.
And you've got that lifestyle that goes with it.
Absolutely.
Although that being said, Fife sellers have become a wee bit more realistic about their pricing, and buyers who have adjusted to the new interest rates and that environment, they do continue to move forward with their plans, because of, you know, people that are set on moving and obviously need to move for whatever their circumstances and things are, have obviously incorporated into their budget these new interest rates and things as well. So things do move forward, and I think it works both sides, from the seller and the buyer, as long as they're both, you know, their expectations, I think, and it's and as an agent, it's managing that correctly as well.
Absolutely. So
yeah, tell us a wee bit. Look ahead. What's the opportunities in the market looking ahead?
So moving deeper into 2024, or what's left of it. We're not going to say the C word just yet. We're not quite there, but
don't say it. We are quite close to getting, but
we are though. Can almost smell it in the air. The Fife property market presents opportunities for both buyers and sellers. For sellers, what does that look like? So that's current conditions indicate that despite higher interest rates, there is still strong demand for well-priced properties, and that's the key word here. And obviously that's something you just touched on, is obviously clients being more realistic with their pricing. And that's a key point to make, is strong demand for well-priced properties. And we're seeing that when we're doing price realignments, and we're educating our sellers on that, look at price realignment. And then actually we're seeing the positives that are coming with that. So it absolutely is that. But on the other hand, its buyers may find that the stabilizing market offers a window of opportunity to secure a home before any potential, dare we say it, further economic changes. I almost feel like I need to touch wood. So what does that look like then? So if you're considering moving in the next, say,
wait, just before you move on, I just wanted to I noticed you said, and you picked up there, you mentioned price realignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is very important, because as opposed to a price reduction and things like that as well, if that is needed, a price realignment is very much a marketing strategy which, if done correctly, doesn't mean you're going to have to accept less for your property.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, it's pricing it correctly so it falls into the correct search criteria and banding to get your property in front of the right audience and the right buyers. And if you are in a situation where you're maybe with another agent or whatever, and you feel like you're having to accept a lower price than what you thought your property was worth, or what you're expecting to get for your property, then price realignment has not been actioned or explained to you correctly. So by all means, if anybody wants to speak to any of us about that, then feel free to do so.
Of course.
But yeah, you're right. As you're saying, if you're considering moving in the next maybe 6 to 12 months, now might be the perfect time to explore that option. So whether you're looking to possibly downsize, find more space, or even just have a change of surroundings, or as we said, change your lifestyle. Do you know, we invite you to obviously get in touch with us. Obviously, we give no obligation advice and tips and things as well, like I just said about obviously price realignment and things. And obviously provide market appraisal valuations and things as well for your Fife home, and to see what it is worth in the current market. So understanding the value of your Fife home in the current market is the first real step to making that informed decision about whether you are going to move or not. So if anybody wants to discuss that, then we are happy to assist in navigating people through this kind of dynamic market that we have, and achieve the goal that you expect to achieve with your property.
Because as well, something on that, so touching on the 6 to 12 months, and you'll hear this as much as we do, Richard, is okay, so if you're planning to move in 6 to 12 months, you need to be getting your ducks in a row now and getting organised, because how many times do we hear, my friends have told me, or people on the street, my property is going to sell really quickly. I know and they start listing off all the positive about it, and absolutely, it's all the positives. But until your property goes to market, and until we are there, we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody's got a crystal ball, but the amount of times we hear, I know my property is going to sell really quickly, and we hear that day in, day out. But obviously, depending on where it is within the micro region of Fife, depending on obviously the pricing, there's loads of contributing factors, which me and Jim did a show on of what that looks like, but nobody knows how long it's going to take. Nobody's got a crystal ball. But if you're planning to move in the next 6 to 12 months, you're better to get on the market, get yourself organised, get your valuation, get your ducks in a row, and then that's for your agent to do your managed entry date or work with you for an entry date. But at least get on the market, because nobody knows.
Yeah, and I think people do have that misconception that, and they might have a lovely home, and they just think, oh, it'll sell really quickly. But then they forget about the whole process, or they maybe don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. They maybe don't know about the whole process about, do you have a solicitor in place? Do you have all the right, have you extended your property? Have you changed your property? Has it been signed off correctly? Do you know, do you have the right mortgage to move on to the next property in place? And do you know, all these things that you need to have checked off that take time, and that I think people just think sell it, move on, and there's a whole process. And as you know, it takes several months to do that.
Yeah, if only it was that easy. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think when Jim and I done the autumn show, it was very much, if you want to be moving in the spring, you need to be listing now, for those reasons that I just covered there just now. So. And if anybody wants any info or some advice on that, then please feel free to touch base with us. You could jump in the comments, you could speak to one of the offices, or come to us online or through socials. There's several different ways to get hold of us. But yeah, what about just your final thoughts then, Sophie, before we round up today?
So, final thoughts is, and I'll always say this to people that consider it, get the valuation. It's just because we're coming out doesn't mean you have to, you're not obligated, but at least that's putting you in your best position as a seller, and that's your dedicated time. You're not going to get any more or better information trying to search online, trying to get all your answers, than getting your expert, your local expert sitting in front of you, answering all your questions. So do it. Pick up the phone, reach out, and then that is your dedicated time to not only get what are you worth, but they can also, they're doing all the donkey work for you. They're giving you the references for who to go to, where to go, and it's almost like a one-stop shop for everything. Then that's your great starting point to then see what your property journey looks like. So that is my biggest bit of advice: is if in doubt, get it done, and then you can at least ask your questions and you know where you stand and you know what that process looks like. And as well, we'll go out to properties and they're like, oh, we just want to know the value. We're not selling. You then give them the value and they're like, oh, better start packing because that's more than I thought it was.
Let's start packing.
Yes, absolutely. So you might be pleasantly surprised as well. So that would be mine, is always ask questions, because that's what we're here for.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, definitely. Speak to the professionals, get that proper advice, and ask lots of questions when you're in that process, because that's the best way to know where you stand. And I think that the Fife property market, as it is, it may have its ups and downs, but I think with a lot of careful planning and the right guidance, there are still plenty of opportunities to capitalise on in this ever-changing landscape that obviously within Fife, Scotland, and indeed the UK property market as a whole. But yeah, so I think we'll round it up there, Sophie. That was really good, and I think that graph today was great. We do have the graphs for the micro regions, as you say, of Fife, which is the KY8, Leavenmouth area, Glenrothes, Cooper, St Andrews, East Nuke, and things. But they all show much the similar trend. Obviously, figures are differ slightly when we come to St Andrews and then Leavenmouth and things. But it did show much of the same trend as that graph for Fife, and I really like that graph because it did really give us a good visual representation of how things have transpired over the last 6 years. So it was great to go through that with you today. I hope everybody watching found that very informative. Any questions, as usual, feel free to come to us, guys. You could click through on the post here or jump on socials or speak to anyone at the offices. So I'll leave it there today, Sophie. Thanks so much for joining me. That was a really good show, and thanks for sharing all your insights on the Fife property market. Okay.
Take care. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.